Hello students. So this is this is our second lecture regarding the cloud computing. So in the previous lecture we have discussed about what is cloud computing, what are the various deployment models of cloud computing, what are the benefits and the risks uh, behind the cloud computing. So in this particular lecture, we are going to discuss now about what are the various components of cloud computing, the infrastructure, and the service models here. Now, first, if we talk about the components. So to actually uh, develop this cloud computing model, we require some certain components. So what are those components here? So a cloud computing solution is made up of several elements such as clients, the data center, and the distributed server. So these clients and data centers and distributed servers are connected to one another. And each element is having its own purpose and play a specific role in delivering this functional cloud-based. So here, computers will play the role, the distributed servers will play the role, and the data center also plays a definite role actually while developing this, while to build up this cloud. Now, if you talk about the client, actually the clients are the devices that the end users interact with to manage their information on the cloud. So the client, the end user, the user is going to interact with this component to manage the cloud application. And means the content, the information on the cloud. See, generally, as I mentioned in my previous lecture, that we all are actually the cloud users. So we are using our personal computers or any digital assistants, or mostly all are actually processing the smartphones. Through your smartphones, you are accessing the information. So these devices actually are used to interact with the cloud. And when you categorize these devices, they fall into three categories. Those are mobile clients, the thin clients, and the thick clients. So mobile clients, as the name itself suggests, that the devices which you can carry, which are movable, which moves from one place to another place, and while moving also, you can access them. So you already we are using this personal digital assistants on the smartphones. We can bring this our smartphones, the personal digital assistants under the mobile clients. Then we have the thin clients. The thin clients are the computers that do not have the internal hard drives, but let the server do all the work, but then display the information there. So you might have come across this particular term, thin clients, in the subjects like web technologies or your operating systems or your computer networks actually. So these clients, this particular component doesn't have the internal hard drive, but rather the server is actually doing to do all the work and only the information is displayed. Okay, and the thick clients are actually the clients, the regular computer, the regular PC, which is having your CPU, the internal hard drive, the processor, etc. So these all comes under the thick clients, and using browsers like your Firefox or Internet Explorer or Chrome, you can connect to the cloud. And out of all these, the thin clients are actually becoming more popular here. So why? Because the thin client, there are several benefits regarding the thin clients. If you discuss them, that they actually comes with a lower hardware cost. So these are cheaper than the thick clients because they do not contain as much as hardware. As I just told you that they don't possess the hard drives. Means no processor. Processing is also done by the server. Only these in general are used only for the display purpose here. And because of this, they lower the IT costs also. The thin clients are managed at the server, uh, and there are few points of failure. There is very few points of failure because means they lower the IT cost because not you are not using this hard drives or the storage here. So everything is done at the server, and there is a few point of failure. And regarding the security aspect, if you talk about that, since the processing takes place at the server and there is no hard drive, these are less chance of malware invading that device. No, there is no malware attack there. It means to attack the malware, if it wants to attack, actually what happens here, there should be a hard drive so that they come and sit at that hard drive and it should try to access the information. But when there is no hard drive, so there's means no problem at all. So they are more secure there. And next comes the data security. Since the data is stored on the server, there is a less chance of data to be lost if the client computer classes are stolen there. So data security is also is there because all the data resides at the server, and if the client computer lost and there is a or crashes, we have less chance of data to be lost. And also less power consumption. Regarding the power consumption also, you can say that when there is no processor, there is no hard drive is there, so obviously the power consumption will be less. And next comes the easy of repair or replacement. So simply you can replace a thin client if it dies, or you can repair it here. And also the if you talk the less noise also they are going to create, because you know that if the processor is there, it makes a lot of noise when your CPU is running. And when there is a no processor is there, no spinning of hard drive is there, then of course there is it will be quieter. That's it. Okay. Next, if you talk about the data center, what is a data center? It is a collection of servers where the application to which you subscribe is housed. Now, the place where your application is going to reside means the collection of, it is a collection of servers. You know, you might have heard that data centers are maintained now in your Andhra Pradesh, means in our AP also, Vizag has some data centers there. So like like a basement room where a number of servers are being placed, which are actually serving for the different applications there. So a growing trend in the IT world is the virtualization servers there. That is, the software can be installed, allowing multiple instances of virtual servers to be used. So this is actually another very interesting topic which is emerging, and which is most of the people are using the virtualization concept there. So you are going to virtualize the servers. Means on a single hardware, what you are going to do, you are going to create on a single machine, you are going to create many virtual machines out there. So that each virtual machine is serving for its own task. Okay, so the multiple instances of the server can be used. The number of virtual servers that exist on a physical server depends upon the size and speed of the physical server and what applications will be running on the server. Now, how many virtual servers you can run on a physical server? So this question, we can't say that there means we can run only 2 or 3 or 5 or 10. We cannot figure out a number there. Why? Because it all depends upon what is the size of the application which you are using, as well as the the number of servers, the speed of the physical server, because the physical server is the one which is actually going to handle all these physical servers requested. Next is the distributed server. So this term also you have come across in your operating systems as well as in your networking here. So what are the distributed servers? The servers are in a geographically disparate locations, but to the cloud user, the cloud subscriber, these servers act if they are humming away right next to each other. Now, I gave you this example when I was dealing the earlier subjects also. Now, when you're sitting in front of a PC and when you're accessing an application, what in the distributed environment, a user would get a feeling that uh, whatever the machine which you're accessing, it is doing everything. Okay, means all the work on the machine, all the work is done on the machine which is in front of you, but rather it's not. Because the work is distributed among the various servers and the work is carried out in different servers there, but it creates an illusion that everything is done in one single PC there. So processing and data are spread out the multiple computers usually over the network. As I told you that processing also and the data is also stored, spread on the various computers usually over the network there. And this gives the service provider more flexibility in options and security. So the service provider actually is going to get a flexibility in the options and the security there. If the cloud needs more hardware, then they need not throw more servers in the safe room. They can add them another at the side and simply making the part of the cloud. Now, this is an interesting statement. Now, if you want to increase the computing power there. So again, because these have been distributed, they're not sitting, they are not lying in the same room there. What you can do there, you can simply add another server to this group and you can use it for the computation. Next, if you talk about the infrastructure. So several different ways you can use to deploy the cloud infrastructure. So next question which arises here is how we are going to deploy the cloud infrastructure. How we have to develop the cloud infrastructure. Now, there is no particular model or the particular way you can build up the cloud solution there. Because it all depends upon the application and how the provider has chosen to build up the application. Because it is, as I mentioned in the earlier lecture also, that a third party is going to provide and what model they have chosen, it all depends upon the provider there. But some of the infrastructures that are used and the existing infrastructures which are actually used to build up this cloud, the cloud actually comes under the grid computing, full virtualization, and para-virtualization. Now, if I talk about what is this grid computing here? Grid computing applies the resources of numerous computers in a network to work on a single problem at the same time. So what you are going to do, a problem is there and numerous computers in the network will work on a single problem at the same time. At the same time, all computers will be working on the same problem. And here, what happens here is, this actually usually done to address the scientific or technical problems. So there are some certain technical problems or the scientific problems are there. To actually address such problems, this grid computing is. I will give you an example here that, see, there is a site, okay, is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence at home project. There is a project called Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence at Home project. So what they have done in this project is, people all over the world allow the SCTI project to share the unused cycles of computers to search for signs of intelligence in thousands of hours of recorded radio data. See, what is done here? You are going to search for the intelligence in the thousands of hours of recorded radio data. So a lot of radio data is recorded there and you are going to search for the signs of intelligence in this thousands of hours. So here the point is we are not going to learn about what actually this SCTI project, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence project here. But what I just want to tell you is the machines of the way means the computing power, the processing, the waste cycles of not waste cycles, I can say that the unused cycles of processor are used to compute this search. Like, for example, your PC is there, you are working at home. So I means it has some high speed. You're using some Core i5 processor, but you may not be using all the computing power of that processor. Now, the extra cycles, the unused cycles of your processor can be allotted for this project by you. Likewise, you just imagine that worldwide number of computers are there, and those computers unused processing cycles actually we are using actually to compute the result. And that's an interesting thing here. And this grid computing is appealing for several reasons. So why? Because it is cost-effective way to use the given amount of computer resources. So it's a very cost-effective way because you're going to use the computing. You're not buying there. You're not buying any computers there. You're simply using the unused cycles of processing cycles of the processor from the computers there. So it is way to solve the problem that need a tremendous amount of computing. I mean, large amount of computer power is required. Now here you are not buying. As I told you that you may involve in this project. You can give your computer cycles to this project. I may give. Likewise, number of people around you can give their computing power for this project there. So project is an example, but in the grid computing, it's generally done here. And here the resources, as I just mentioned, the resources of several computers can be shared cooperatively without one computer managing the other. So all the computing resources are in mind. Now, how this grid computing is actually related to your cloud computing? So grid computing and cloud computing are related to each other. So in grid computing, a large project is divided among multiple computers to make use of the resources. Okay, but in cloud computing, does just the opposite. It allows multiple smaller applications to run at the same time. So number of applications will be running on your systems at the same time. There, one project is divided into number of among the several number of multiple computers, and here what happens here is number of means applications will be running on the at the same time. Next is another means emerging technology. Of course, emerged, I can say the emerged technology is the full virtualization. So in this, what we do is complete installation of one machine is run on another. And install means you are going to install the complete installation right from the booting to running the application. This is actually installed on another physical server. Means another physical server is there, it is having its own operating system, own hardware, everything already running it on that virtual means environment. On the virtual software, you are going to install another machine and you are going to make it run. So in this full virtualization deployment, the software running on the server is displayed on the client side. So in this environment, the software which is running on the server is displayed on the client, the full virtualization environment. So it is actually also very successful, the full virtualization, again, because of the several reasons there. So you can say that sharing a computer system among the multiple users there. So you can share your computer among the multiple users because not one single virtualized machine software you can use. You can deploy number of virtual machines there, and isolating users from each other and from the control program. So you are going to isolate the users from each other. Means here on one system, as I told you, another piece of software will be running. So I will assume that that machine is working for myself, and you may be using the same machine. You may install you might have installed your software and also you are running there, and some other XYZ also have installed and they may also be running there. And now what happens here is it will isolate from each other, isolate the users from each other as well as from the control program. And emulating hardware on another machine then means emulating hardware, emulation in the sense it imitating the function of another machine as by modifying the hardware or the software. So what is this emulation? You are imitating the function of another system there. You are just imitating it. So because virtualization is the imagination there. So you are imitating the function of another system here by modifying the hardware as well as or the software. Now, how these two are actually, again, the cloud computing and virtualization have been doing it. Virtualization is relevant to cloud computing because it is one of the ways in which you will be access the services of the cloud. So here, it is one of the way. The virtualization is actually the one way in which you can access the services of the cloud there. Means the remote data center may be delivering your services in a fully virtualized format. So the remote virtual means if you might have installed something, so that may be delivering your services in fully virtualized format then. So I will just talk about more about this in the coming slides. Next, para-virtualization. So this is actually allows the multiple operating systems to run on single hardware device at the same time by more efficiently using the system resources like processor and the memory there. Here, see, not a single now here, multiple operating systems on a single machine, multiple operating systems. So I like Windows 10, I may be using the Windows 10. You may like a Macintosh, you may be using the Macintosh. The other may like some Linux, they may be using the Linux there. But all these Linux, Windows or Macintosh, they are residing on the same system, and the system resources like the processor and memory are used efficiently here. So in the virtualization, actually full virtualization, the entire system is emulated. The entire system is imitated, means the BIOS, ROM BIOS, the basic input-output system, the drive and so on. But in para-virtualization, its management module operates with the operating system that has been adjusted to work with in a virtual machine. So there is a management module will be there, and this module in the operating system is adjusted to work in a virtual machine. And here the trade-off is the reduced security and flexibility there. So there is a slight trade-off here because so the security will is an issue here as well as the flexibility here. For instance, the flexibility is reduced because a particular OS or the distribution may not be available, not be able to work there. Means a particular OS may not be work at some times there. Okay, next, for example, a new Windows deployment may not be available as a guest OS for the solution. Means if suppose some new OS has been come, the new version of Windows has been come, it may or it may not be available to you at an instant. Next is another issue is the security. Security can be at risk because the guest OS has more control of the underlying hardware. The guest OS, which is been running there, it has more control over the underlying hardware, and there is a risk of impacting the hardware and all the guest systems on the host. It means the guest systems maybe get impacted because of this. Okay, there is a risk of impacting of this hardware, and it means the impact of the guest OS might be on the other systems also there. And also this para-virtualization also allows for better scaling. So scaling, it is scalable because you can increase the requirement, means any resources as per requirement, or you can decrease it. So it works best in 3 sorts of deployments there: para-virtualization, disaster recovery, migration, and capacity management. So disaster recovery in this, in the event of catastrophe. So if anything disaster has been happened there, so the guest instances simply can be moved from to another hardware until the equipment get repaired. It means whatever the guest instance is there, simply just removed because it is having everything with it. Okay, so simply just you remove it, you place it on another system, you make this. I mean, you work with that. Meanwhile, you get repaired the system and you can just put it back there. And also moving from one system to another system is also been easy there because the guest instance can be removed from the underlying hardware. So they are not actually in lying on the hardware there. They are just a file. You can just simply move it from one system to another system. And the third one is the capacity management. Because of the easier migrations, capacity management is simpler to implement. Okay, so you can increase the capacity or you can decrease the capacity by adding more processing power or hardware drive in a virtualized environment. Okay, next is the service model. This is one of the most heart of the cloud computing there. So the different service model we have. So it specifies what type of services actually your cloud is going to provide. So the term services in a cloud computing is a concept of being used for reusable fine-grained components across a vendor's network. So your reusable solutions are fine-grained. So finally they have been grained across the computer network. And generally, this offerings with as a service means this service model will have a suffix to all as a service. As a service will be added to all, like you are going to discuss about the software as a service, platform as a service, and hardware as a service here. Now, because what are the traits here? Like the low barriers to entry, making them available to the small business. So this is a good trait here because of this, these models can be available to even a very small business there. Means it is the cloud computing is not confined only to the larger businesses there. In fact, it is actually available to even smaller businesses also. Next is the large scalability. Large scalability in the sense means it is actually scalable. You can increase as and when required, and you can decrease it as and when required. I mean, according to the same. And also we have a multi-tenancy, which allows the resources to be shared among the many users. So many users can share the resources again among each other. Next is a device independence, which allows the users to access the system on a different hardware. So because of device independency, I told you in my first lecture also that, so platform independence is there. That is the reason why you can access the systems on different hardware. And we have service model, three types of service models. We have the software as a service, platform as a service, and hardware as a service. So what is software as a service? So this is also can be termed as an on-demand software. So in which the applications are hosted by the cloud provider and user access this application using the internet. So already, as I means, you all are actually taking this, using this service, that's a software as a service there, because you can, if you observe, if you see in the example there, you have the Google Apps, okay, or a Dropbox or a GoToMeeting, like I am using Zoom here now. So it is a software which is placed on some machine, and I'm just using it, okay, to deliver my lectures here. Now, the characteristics of the software as a service is managed from the central location. So this everything is managed from a central location from one place there, and it is hosted by the remote server. The server is placed somewhere there, and it is managed here, and it is accessible over the internet. And this software applications are accessed via internet, and user is not responsible for the hardware software updates there. Any software hardware updates are there, those are done by the cloud provider, and you need not bother about the updation there. Everything is taken care by the provider there. Okay, and this purchase services are available for us as pay as per use basis there. So as you are using, you can pay them, and sometimes some services are actually freely, means they are available for free. So you can use them, okay, on a free basis, or you can pay a little amount and you can use them. And next, what are the benefits of this software as a service? So costing less money. So when you are using, means one of the biggest benefit of this software as a service is cost lessing money than buying the application outright. Means, as I just told you, you need not buy it. See, a simple example there, Windows Word is there. Microsoft Office, which provides you the Office applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Now, today you need not buy the MS Office. It need not be in your machine. It need not be in your device there. If your device is having some internet connection, just log in, go to the Google apps there. There you are having this Google Docs. In this Google Docs, you are having this the word processor, the spreadsheet as well as a PowerPoint presentation. Simply use them to prepare your prepare your documents. Okay, so you need not buy them. So that's clause. And familiarity means those who are having a familiarity with your World Wide Web there. Simply they can start using the learning curve of this using these applications can be much smaller there, because you need not learn anything. Nobody has to sit and learn how to use a cloud computing, because you just if you are having an internet idea, simply you can start using it. And because of this, the smaller stuff there. See, when your application is residing in somewhere and you're not maintaining it, so what is the purpose of maintaining the IT staff, more IT staff here? So it reduces the ability to farm out the application, because the applications are farmed out, they are placed somewhere. So less IT staff can be used. And customization is another benefit here. So what is this? Easier to customize your applications there. So already the available applications which are there in the cloud, you can simply customize them and can give an organization exactly what they want. And marketing also, as a provider who had developed an application very for a narrow market, might had problem of marketing the application. Means sometimes when the people have been developed an application, they have some limited scope here. But because of this software as a service, the entire world is open to the providers there. So who is a provider? Means a provider who has built up an application. Now his application can be accessed by any people throughout the world there, provided they have an internet connection. And web reliability, the web is generally quite reliable here, because we often come with this problem that what happens if we don't have an internet connection, if we lose an internet connection, if it is coming and going, etc., etc., unstable connection. So you may ask for the question about the unstable connection there. That's not a big issue there. Mostly our internet connections today are available. Rarely they get disconnected, so you can rely on that. Then the security here. Secure socket SSL. You might have studied this in your network security subject, that it is widely used and trusted there. And it allows the customers to reach their application securely without having to employ the complex backend configurations. So you need not employ any securely, you cannot employ any complex backend configuration, and you can simply reach your applications here. And next is more bandwidth. Increased bandwidth in the recent years, because the bandwidth has been increased from the recent years. See, from our days when we started using this internet, so there is a lower bandwidth there. But today you are in a 4G, you're using the 4G network, and also very soon the advanced generations are going to come here. So when you're having the high-speed network, it helps the data flow and will allow the organization to trust that they can access their application with low latencies and good speed. Next is platform as a service. So if you talk about the platform as a service, now to create an application, you generally should have a platform. Generally have a platform. Like, say, for example, if you want to build up an application, so in Java, if you want to write some application, okay, so you need to install the software, you need to have an operating system, software, everything. Then you go for building up the application. Now, here comes the benefit here. No, you need not buy the software, you need not install them, you need not maintain them. Everything, the platform is provided by your service provider. All you need to do is just go develop, test, run, and manage your application. That's it. Means you are not actually handling the platform here. You're just using the already available platform. Means ready-made platform is available for you. Just go and you start using it. Okay. And here the access, the characteristics of this platform as a service that accessible to the various users via the same development application. So it can be accessed because you can sit in your house and you can access that application, or can collaborate with each other and they can build up. in my earlier lecture, I gave the example of the Wipro, which is having the providing the cloud environment there. So what the employees are doing, they are accessing that cloud via their machine, and from their own PC, they are developing the application. And also, it is possible for us in the platform as a service to integrate the various web services and the databases. That you can integrate the databases and web services, and you can make them run. And also builds on the virtualization technology, so the resources can easily be scaled up and down as per the organization needs. So again, because here comes a virtualization concept here, because you're using it there. The advantage here is you can easily scale up or down as per the organization. It means if more processing power is required, more resources are required, you can simply go up. Otherwise, you just come down. And provides an ability to auto scale. Auto scale ability is also provided, and when required, automatically it will adjust and it will increase, otherwise it will decrease. And we have the several examples that AWS, Amazon Web Services, Elastic Bean, Stack, Windows, Azure, Heroku, Post.com, Google App Engine, etc. Those are mentioned there. And next, what are the types of PAs and the trends then? PAs is found in 3 different types then. Add-on development facilities, the standalone environment, the application delivery only environment. Application delivery only environments. These add-on development facilities actually allows the existing software as a service application to be customized. Means already these applications are available on a PC, on your cloud provider. What you do is you can customize as per your requirement. So per your requirement, you just customize them and you start using them. And often this platform as a service developers and the users are required to purchase the subscriptions to the add-on SAS application. To customize them, what you have to do, the PS, the platform as a service developers and the users need to purchase a subscription. You need to purchase a subscription to this add-on SAS application. Next, a standalone environment. In this, do not require any licensing, include any licensing, technical, or financial dependencies on the specific SAS application and are used for general development. So you can use no licensing is required, no technical or financial dependencies on the software as a service applications, or you can use them for the general development. Means generally you can already it is available on the machine. You start developing your own application there. And application delivery only environment, these environments actually support hosting level services like security and on-demand scalability. So they actually support you hosting the applications of hosting level services like the security and next the on-demand scalability, and they do not include development, debugging, and testing capabilities. So you're just hosting them, you're making them run there, and like just they provide the security and the on-demand scalability there. When it's already developed application is there, you have just deployed on the platform and you are using it, and you're just providing the security there. So no development, debugging, and testing capabilities are not provided. And what are the trends? Some of the trends of the PS, some other factors influencing the adoption includes the ability of geographically isolated development teams to work together. So previously, I just explained you that you need not be, all people need not sit in a single room and develop an application now. You can simply stay at your different places and you can start developing the application there. And the ability to merge the web services from multiple sources there. So you can merge the web services from multiple resources from different services. You can merge and you can use them. And also the ability to realize cost saving from using the built-in infrastructure services for security, scalability, and failover rather than having them obtain and test them separately. Okay. Now here, what this particular statement says that you can have the cost saving for using built-in infrastructure. No, you are not having a built-in infrastructure here. services. So for security or scalability, it is already provided over there. And also any failure is there, it is taken by the, I mean, those all issues are been taken by the service provider. And you can just rather have, rather than having obtained and test them separately. So you need not have to test them separately. Everything means, what I just mean to say here is, uh, uh, see, it is a cost-saving environment actually. Built-in infrastructure services for security, scalability, and failure, rather than having to obtain them. And because already built-in services are there, you need not test them because already they have been tested. They have been taken care of there. And next, the ability to realize cost savings from the user higher level programming abstractions there. So here the cost saving from using higher level programming instructions. So again, a costing higher level programming instructions are also available there. You can simply start using them. And the next one is an infrastructure as a service there, also known as the hardware as a service there. Now here, entire machine is available to you. The first one, applications are already available. Simply go and use them. The second one, you are having platform, you develop the application. The third one is only a bare hardware is available for you. You just go there, you just install whatever you require, you install whatever the applications you require, and then start using them. The main advantage of this is it helps the user to avoid the cost and complexity of purchasing and managing a service. Means you're not, the main concept here in simple terms, I can say that you're not just purchasing the machine, you're just hiring a machine, and whatever you want, you can just dumping in that right from the operating system, your application, then you're developing it and you're using it, and after users, you're simply giving it back. That's it. So because of this, the resources you can say, see in the bottom of the slide, it is mentioned that resources such as server space, networking equipment, memory, CPU cycle, storage space, all are available to you. You simply start using them. Previously, when you buy a system, this all comes to you. Now, you need not buy them, already they are available, simply start using them. And these services are highly scalable. Storage space, you want to scale up, you want more storage space, simply request, get it. If you want less, just get it. Pay as you use them. And because this is what is the dynamic and flexible here, you can increase dynamically, you can increase the service or you can decrease it. And you are having this GUI application program interface based access there. You have a graphical user interface access, and as well as the application program interface based access there. And automated administrative tasks there, the administrative tasks are also being automated there. So several examples are there, the DigitalOcean, Lindo, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, etc. Okay, so what are the pieces of this hardware as a service then? Okay, so the hardware as a service level agreements. Now here comes the service level agreement. It's the most important thing there. So there will be an agreement between the provider and the client guaranteeing a certain level of performance from the system. So performance issue. So if you want to develop an application, the provider, when he is providing a system, he assures you that my system is going to provide you guarantee actually the certain performance there. So it is going to perform like that. So depending upon that service level agreement, you're going to develop an application there. Next is the hardware. These are the components whose resources will be rented out. So you're, as I just told you, are just bringing it for, taking it for rent, and you're using. The service providers often have this setup for the grid for easier scalability. They have a grid of computers will be there, and as I told you, they will add on as and when required. Just next, the network there. It includes the hardware for firewalls, routers, load balancing, and so on. So they also provide the firewalls, the routers, as well as the load balancing. And internet connectivity. This allows the clients to access the hardware from their organization. Obviously, requires the internet connectivity. and platform virtualization environment. So this allows the clients to run virtual machines they want. They can run the virtual machines, and the utility computing billing typically set up to bill the customers based upon how the system resources are used. Based upon the usage of the system, you're going to build it. So that's it. I hope you got the points. So in this particular lecture, we have discussed about the various components which are required, various components, and how you're going to lay the structure using the grid, either the grid or full virtualization or para-virtualization. And also we have discussed in brief about the various service models. In coming lectures, we will discuss more about this. Thank you.